Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar about building a sustainable career path and preparing for senior roles as you navigate the next stages of your career. Today's session is the second and final part of our post-internship training that is being hosted by Alice from Cocoon. I just also want to express a massive thank you to Alice for delivering both of these sessions, for giving your time and your insights and sharing your knowledge to all of our alumni. We'll wait a few moments for everyone to arrive and then we'll get started.
Amazing. Thank you for having me as always. Since I love doing these, so I'm glad. Maybe whilst people are joining, if you do want to say hi, in the chat, if you just want to say maybe your name and then are you in a job or searching for one right now? And then if you want to share something that you found, like a challenge that you're facing whilst kind of building your career, think about senior roles, etc. Then please share. That helps me tailor as well and like to all of you. So I can get started. I've put mine in terms of thinking about growing in my role. It is a whole other thing to lead a company and um, you know, being present in a different way. And so please do share, do say hi. It's great. Last time that I did this, it was great because I think most of you were searching for a role, so we got to really focus it more on the job search. So the content will evolve. Obviously, that'll be the same slides, but it does help me to know if you are in a job or not and what you're facing. So I'll give everybody maybe a second to write this, and then we'll get started. All of you on the call, so please do not leave me hanging. All right, well, to do all of this, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Alice. I'll be your speaker today. I'm the co-founder of Kokoon. I'll talk about Kokoon in a second, but just to tell you a little bit about my personal journey, I started as an intern in a two-people startup, basically the founder and myself. I did everything from like founding, like I even learned, I think, how to code at some point to be able to like update the website. I managed to find fractional talents that was able to do some work with us. I did the sales, I did the social media, I did kind of everything for the founder, which got me to learn a lot, which was really interesting. I was also an intern at Walt Disney. I feel like some of like I know someone from the 10K Foundation was interning at the Walt Disney, so maybe I'm not alone, and some of you have experienced that as well. So very different environment, massive company, super structured, you fit in one place. So that was very different learning experience for me. And then I started really my kind of full-time, my first job was at WeWork. Back in the day when no one knew what it was, got to do a bunch of roles as well there. Got to at the end manage someone, hire for that role. So really thought about kind of my career path and where I wanted to take it. And that has kind of always been a bit of a guiding function for me. I was always very intentional about where I was, where I wanted to go, what was next, what I want to learn, and kind of built on that. So after WeWork, I left, I went to Amazon, and then I got to meet a friend who is now my co-founder, Jack, and we started our company because we kept seeing a lot of young people starting in their careers, probably just like you, and really struggle because you don't get the same support that maybe we had before when we were full-time in the office, or just things have really changed in the way we work. And so we wanted to fix that. So we've basically built an AI coach. It lives in Slack and it acts like the best manager you've ever had. So it messages you daily to understand, how it can help you be more focused, more productive, checks in at the end of the day to say, hey, how did that go? Helps you prepare for meetings, etc. So that's just a little bit about me. So you know who I am. Okay, and we're still having a few people saying hi. So we have people in a job, want to plan next steps of career, you're in a graduate role, and you want to know how to get to next steps in your career. Okay, amazing. So That sounds good. Please do keep saying hi in the chat. I promise I'm nice. So here's what we will talk about. So we're going to talk about being clear on your skills, your areas of improvement. We'll talk a bit about the personal brand and what this is. And then mostly we'll talk about personal development plans, what they are, and basically building the next steps for your career. So let's kick off with personal brand. A short one because I know the 10K Foundation does 10K Interns Foundation does so much work on personal brand, but the main thing to know about a personal brand is that you don't build one, you curate one. And so what this means is you don't really get to decide like I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be, like you get to build suddenly one day, I'm gonna now build my brand. You curate it because your personal brand is you and who you are and how you show up. And so all you get to do is curate, tweak it, change, and influence it. And so just something to remember. We don't just suddenly decide that we get to just build it. And it's very much the way you curate it, sorry, is what do you want to be known for? What are things like if people, talk about you, I think it's Jeff Bezos who said brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's your personal brand. What do you want people to say when you're not there? Are you the person who's always late? Or are you the person who's so organized? Are you the person who comes up with all the ideas, or are you the person who's the most effective, get stuff done? Like you can be all of that, by the way, but it's great for you to start thinking about some of these things. And sometimes we don't really realize these things until somebody tells us like, oh, you're great at that. So I know for me, for example, I remember like now when I speak to old managers, they're like, oh, we knew you were always the one that would get anything done. Like if we got it, we knew you had it. It's like, that's great, brand. And so I've then kind of learned from this and thought every time I'm going to get something, it's going to get done. I'll show that I've got it. If I'm blocked, I'll communicate it. But I wanted this to be my brand. So I've really leaned into this. So how do you actually do this? You first you focus on what makes you unique. So you can do this in the chat if you feel comfortable, but if you're thinking about you, like what's one thing that you think you have that's different from others? Why do you stand out? Like it could be things like you speak another language, you lived in another country, I don't know, you're a great cook, you've managed a side project, in an internship that you did something very like different, like whatever it is. It could be a technical ability, you knit, or you code apps in your downtime, like whatever it is. There's so many things that make you that don't need to be anything crazy. I lean in a lot to the fact that I'm French because I live in the UK, so that's exotic, I guess, but also it means that I can speak another language. It means that I think in a different way because I'm bilingual. So it's a little things. I wouldn't lead with, oh, I'm French, I'm unique, but it's just a way to show that there are things that make us different. Like you might have a different understanding of a culture, you might have, a different approach to work because of an experience you've had. So you really do the list of like everything that makes you everything you've experienced, everything that makes you, because then you can that helps you pull on what you really want to lean into, what you think is like an advantage. And those are things that you get to use when you're thinking about your career step and where you want to go. Those are things you get to use on your strengths. Those are things if you are searching for a job that helps you in your CV or cover letter or interviews when you do want to show how unique you are. So definitely an exercise you can do as you are planning your next steps. I'm just checking the chat. Looking for a job. I'm currently in a job looking to promote myself. Perfect. We'll talk about that. Start looking for a job in August. I want to get an idea of how. Okay, to know if I'm making the right decisions. Okay, amazing. I love that. Um, okay, the second thing then on your personal brand is then to be what we call selectively famous. So in the company, however big it is, I mean, unless you're in the two people startup like I was, it's impossible for everyone to know you, and that's not really the point. What you want to do is find who should know you. And if you are looking for a job, it can be the hiring manager, it can be the HR, but finding people who should really know who you are and know you for the right reasons. And if you are planning the next steps, if you want to get seen and all of that, that's exactly like who is going to be the person to make the promotion decision. for example, at Amazon, you needed to get a bunch of different sponsors to say, like, yes, I'll promote you. It's not that structured in all workplaces, but usually you'll need to get some, other people vouch for you or say, yes, that person is great. So if you identify a few senior people, a few peers, like people you really want to impress, map them out. And then if there's work projects with them, that's where you show up you give the best you have. But instead of trying to be everything, everyone, like the CEO should know me. Like it's okay if the CEO does not know you, or but make the impression on maybe the VP of sales who works with you closely. Like that's how you start being a little bit strategic, because then you get to even little things. Let's say you're in a meeting with that person, you've let's say you've took great notes, or you use an AI tool, whatever it is, and they say, hey, check the notes, clean them up, here, there for you, here's the actions, I can help on XYZ, whatever it is. But you can start showing up as well, like if you want to be the proactive person. That's a great personal brand to have. The third thing based on all of this is to get super clear on your story. So if you are in a role, maybe we sometimes kind of forget it, but actually your elevator pitch, which is the basic thing, like if you're in an elevator of somebody you want to impress, what do you say? I have to do this a lot as a startup founder to pitch for investment clients, you name it. And actually, even though I do it a lot, I still find it quite tricky. So highly recommend that you be quite clear on, like, if you were to describe yourself to someone, you run into someone at a restaurant in the street and go, hey, like, what do you do? Oh, I'm this, I do X, or here's one thing I've achieved, or, be able to pull up a great win. So that, if you're talking about, obviously we'll talk about promotions, how that looks like, because a few of you are mentioning this. But this is where you want to have data, you want to have facts. So be clear on your story, be clear on your facts, have your list of achievements, have a quick elevator pitch just to be able to introduce yourself. And that does make an impression. Like if you are, let's say you're meeting that senior person, you really want them to know you and they don't know you yet, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm whatever, Alice, who are you? And go, oh, I'm this person, I do this, I work with. That's so much clearer than, yeah, I'm working that team, and because you want to be like sharp and show that you're on it. Once again, if that's your brand. And then just another note on this, and then I'll move on. The last one is, I'll be fairly quick, but it's just a reminder, your personal brand is not something you just make up overnight. It's every day. It's daily actions. It's how you show up every day. And sadly, the thing about personal brands, you're usually remembered by the last thing you've done. It's not always true, but if you were late, let's say you want to have the promotion discussion and you showed up late, very late the day before, or you had like, I don't know, you were really bad on a call. Like obviously it's not going to affect everything, but that's usually the last thing people remember. So you want to make sure that you be strategic as well with when you ask for promotions or next steps, career, whatever it is that you want. With maybe a moment you've had a few wins. That's just a tactic. Obviously, it doesn't mean that if you've had a fail, you can't ask for something, but it's just daily actions and then build on that momentum. And then the virtual brand, I won't talk about this. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of information, but there's loads you can do with LinkedIn. There's loads you can do. So LinkedIn, massive tool, loads you can do to like, post, follow, connect with people, grow, get mentors, whatever it is. If you have questions about this, we can talk more, but I'm aware there's a lot of content out there, so I don't want to repeat. But the virtual brand in your company is also things like, you're the person that always sends the meeting agenda. Like all your meetings have a location, have an agenda, and you follow up right after the meeting. You show up, you're always the first one on the call. Like that could be a little challenge for a week. You have to be the first one on every call. It's little things that sometimes might sound a little bit like, really, is that gonna make a difference? But that is also how you truly, like, you build the credibility, you build trust of someone by being the person who's, yeah, you're on it, you followed up, you've been on that call. So there's tiny things you can do to build your internal virtual brand if you're working if you're working remote. Are there any, I went maybe a bit quick on all of this, so I'm going to take a sip of water, and this is a moment if you have any questions, things that are not clear, if you want me to talk more about specific things of personal brand. If not, I'll move on to um, the development plan. 2 sips. Okay, I'm not seeing anything light up in the chat. If you do have a question, you're still typing it. I can go back on the slides, but in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving so we can talk about the meaty stuff, which is the personal development plan. So the way that I think about a personal development plan, it's basically that thing that helps you plan your next steps for your career. And if you are in that job searching and you're trying to figure out, where you want to go, if you're making the right decision, that's also a great tool to have even before you're in a job because it can help you plan. Like I'll give you an example, but like I did this with one of my mentees and he was in a job but wanted to like move to kind of a different industry. And we were kind of talking about, well, what is it that excites you? What do you want? And we're kind of starting to build the big picture, the kind of big dream career. And then we're like, okay, well, what's a step before this? And just to say, then we were able to identify an area for him to move. So his company had a different department that was relevant. He got to apply to a job and move to that job. So it's little things like this where, if you are thinking about the dream role, but you might not be able to get it, what are other steps you can do if you're playing the long game to get you there? And if you're already in a job, like similar things. So it's great to be strategic. I will be very honest with you, so many people are not, and they go wherever the wind blows them. I met somebody who's amazing, and she's probably in her mid-40s, and she's like, oh, I'm in this role because I don't know, I was always in this role, and I got moved in that role, and that was good. And when you're not intentional about your career, you can end up anywhere. If you're lucky and you have great mentors, people want to pull you up, you'll end up in great roles, but you could also end up in kind of on the side or wondering why 5 years on you're literally like in the same role or not happy, or you're like, this is not what I wanted to do. So all to say, big fan of personal development plan, big fan of using them. Creating them is not enough. So we'll talk through all of this. But basically, this is a very long preamp to say this is your blueprint for your career. And so we'll start with first, the way that I build one is you want to assess where you want to go, then you want to assess where you are, and then you want to build that bridge. And then you want to, so you want to do the map of the bridge, and then you start building it and you review regularly to see how the build is going. That's my metaphor. So first we talk about goals. Um, since some of you have shared that you want to plan the next steps in your career, can you share in the chat what are kind of 6 to 12 month goals that you have for yourself? And a goal, just so we can use this maybe as an example, if you feel comfortable sharing. Um, a goal can be, it can be a new job, it can be a promotion, but it can also be learning a skill. It can be feeling more confident doing something. It can be, I want to take on this new project. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be like, I want to be like a manager by X, it can be, that's great if that's what you truly want. But I know like in some roles you don't control this, or some graduate roles you have to do the 2 year grad program. So sometimes it's also thinking, well, what is it that I want to learn? What's that step? What excites me? So if you feel comfortable sharing, you can share them in a smart format. Would love to see some of your goals. For me, I can share one of the key goals I have is I want to be a lot more confident and clear when I pitch my startup, and kind of hit me um like today, I feel like I always have different pitches. So I talked to someone and I was describing what we were doing. It's like, that's not clear. And then I speak to an investor and I feel like I go in places. I thought, oh God, this is going to be my goal. I'm going to make it a bit shorter, but I'd like that by the end of the summer or August, I'm like on it. I can describe it. I can, give you 2 metrics, and I'm not too sure yet how I'm going to do it. So I'll use this webinar with you to talk about that. But it's basically like is that kind of confidence slash public speaking, but in more of an intimate format. How do I make it not me kind of babbling on? And I love to be extremely authentic and be myself, and I think sometimes I then forget that I also need to show like a professional front or whatever that is. So it's trying to find, so for me that's my goal. I'm going to try and get really crisp, very clear, kind of impressive person. Okay, to be more involved in strategy of community engagement and project management skills. That's great. I love how you frame this goal, because I think it's interesting to say, well, I'm working on this, but and maybe you're doing more the execution and you want to take the step of the strategy. And then it's, okay, well, how can we build those steps to make you more strategic thinker? That's the typical scale that take you from junior to more senior type of roles. So that's really great. And project management skills, I have lots of thoughts about project management, but I think that's a great thing to learn. Um, Okay, so you want to work in Europe to get international experience aligned with your sector. So next 12 months. And then data skills. Love it. Um, be in a senior leadership role in a new company. So that's in 6 months. Okay, that's very ambitious, but that's wonderful. 12 months, learn at least one new relevant skill to your role. British sign language. Yeah, that's great. In 6 months, I would like to improve my knowledge in ML. I'm guessing that's machine learning. And that's great. So all of these goals are great. And what I would do is I would push you to make them smart. So a lot of you have the time bound in 6 months. You can be even clear and say by November, by December, that next time, by May, like be super clear of like a date where you can check in with yourself. But that's where you have the time bound one. A lot of you are being specific, right? So you're saying, I want to work in Europe in a role like, okay, so if we take this one, for example, I want to work in Europe to get international experience. So you're getting something that feels relevant to you. You're saying, it matters to me because I want to get that experience in something that's more aligned with my sector. Maybe that you know what it is, but be super specific, like what type of sector, what type of experience. Are you looking at an internship, a full-time job, a part-time? Are you looking at, like be super clear about what are the things that you want. And then in the next 6 months, so working towards it in the next 12 months, that's great, but like be super clear, like, what is it do you want to do in 12 months? You need to have something where in 12 months, if by 7th of May next year, you and I catch up, Melanie, you're able to say, I can tell you, well, did you achieve your goal? Yes or no? Was it a success? That's the point of a SMART goal, is for you to be able to be a little bit more accountable. And measurable, that's the point. Measurable. Will you know if you're successful? Um, Data handling skills, for example, that's great. How will you use this? How will you know? Is it, you want to be able to run a project by yourself, do an analysis, like these are the types of things that help you make the goal a bit clearer. And I'm saying all of this because that's really relevant to then build the plan. So same, you want to be in a senior leadership role in a new company. What type of company? What's the senior role look like for you? Is it management, non-management? You want to learn one relevant skill to your role. What type of skill? How will you know? Do you want to be fluent in the British Sign Language, for example? Or do you want to be able to have one conversation? Things like this. I'm pushing you a bit, so that you're able to can we have a copy of the slides? Yeah, very happy to send the slides, by the way. But just so you are able to measure this and to really help kind of help achieve your goals. I'm hoping this makes sense. Shout if it's not. So same, I want to be involved in the strategy of community engagement. That's wonderful. What does that look like? Is it you want to manage a project, especially with the project management skill? Do you want to manage a project by yourself? Do you want to be involved in setting that strategy? Let's say it's every 6 months that you talk about it. You want to be involved in the next cycle. You want to, contribute to at least 2 ideas. It's things like this that start to help define what comes next. So that's your homework. You don't need to do this now, but push yourself a little bit. Make sure that your goal is smart and you know that you know how to measure it next time, right? 6 months, 12 months. Then, so we understood where we are. Well, actually, sorry, we understood where we want to go, which is our goals, and be very clear about what are some of those things. And now we need to understand where we are now. Wait, can I change my slide? The way to understand where you are now is basically you do two things. Well, you identify two things. What are your strengths, and then what are your growth areas? The point is to have. We'll talk about kind of mapping and how you get those things, but it's really important because let's say you want to be better at machine learning. Where are you now? Like just assess on the 0 to 10. Are you where are you? Because then that will help you define. And where do you want to go? Are you a 5 now and you want to become a 10? Are you a 1 and you want to become a 10? Very different roadmap. Are you a 3 and you want to become a 4? Like it's being super clear on some of these as well. So that's why we evaluate where we are now. And so two ways to, well, we'll start first with reflecting on your strengths, which here I'm calling superpowers because I have a lot of experience in American companies and I love that term. And then we'll talk about growth areas. There's, once again, two ways for you to assess these things. The first one is self-reflection, which you should start with. And then the second one is asking for feedback, which we'll talk about in a second. You always start with self-reflection because you want to be able to expose your thoughts to someone else's before getting the bias of what somebody else thinks of what your strengths and areas of growth are. So first you reflect on what are your superpowers. And the way to do this is a superpower basically is an exceptional strength. I'm sorry, maybe I went a bit extreme on this one, but I'm sorry. Sorry about that. It should be specific, distinctive, and concise. So the point is not say, oh, I'm great at organization or I'm very good at public speaking. You want to be able to really outline something that you could tell a manager, that you could tell a colleague that you are really good at, that's really your strength. If it's not a superpower and it feels a bit daunting, I know in the UK we don't really love to brag or talk about top strengths. Sorry, I got something down the wrong pipe. Then, if in the UK that feels a little bit uneasy, great. If you're uncomfortable, it means you're growing, by the way. So force yourself to be slightly uncomfortable. But if it feels you're like, oh, but I don't really know what am I really great at. If you feel like you're more generalist and you're good at a lot of things, that's fine as well. Actually, that is a skill. So you can start identifying, maybe write a few things. So usually the way that I encourage people to do that is if you're thinking in your role right now, what are the tasks you enjoy the most to do? What are the things you get done quickest? Where did you get praise? Where do you feel at your best? Those are usually some of the top questions you can ask yourself. Um, like I know I'm at my best when I'm thinking strategically or creatively. I'm a very big picture kind of person. That's where I get excited. The tasks that and then we'll talk about the growth areas. Those are usually the tasks on the other end that always end up at the bottom of your to-do list and you never want to do or you're not great at. Like I'll see for me, like it'll be the kind of the nitty gritty. Like we'll joke about this with my co-founder because I'll have lots of ideas and I'll put them on like a Notion and then it's super messy and then having to like organize, clean up. Like I'm not good at this. So if you're thinking about those things for yourself, what do you think if you're trying to think about what do you love doing? What's something that always comes up? Like, are you noticing a pattern? Is it creative thinking? Is it, you love you like you feel like you're always super organized, you love to follow up after everything, you're that kind of, top, like everything gets done. Are you noticing anything? Can you share it in the chat? And whilst you do, here's also a way that that helps you frame it. It's like, for example, if you're saying, oh, I'm a great problem solver, like instead of just saying this, you can say, my superpower lies in my ability to face problems that seem challenging at first, and then my ability to rally others around me to come up with a solution. That's so specific because it's not just, oh, I'm great at solving problems. Okay, cool. How do you do it? What's your sauce? Like secret sauce? How are you? What makes you the best at this? It's a tricky one. That's something you can refine later. But if you want to start sharing in the chat what you think, what are stuff that you think you're really good at, and I know it feels uncomfortable. So that's why I encourage you to do it publicly. Let's all do it together. Um, and then once you have this, I'll share you. You'll have access to the slides. You can start writing in that sense as well. Um, do you think you're great at working with people? Do you think you're great at, are you actually like more technical person and you love the detail? Like you're the person who can spot like a double space in a 300-page PDF. Like what is your, you know, what are some stuff that come to mind? I'll take a pause so everybody can share. I will not move to the next slide until people have shared. It doesn't need to be well articulated, totally fine if it feels a bit messy. If you just want to share and say, you know what, like I love to I love to sit in front of an Excel. I love that. I have that tendency. I do love a good Excel. Start sharing those and then we can brainstorm, see how we could make those better. We have a volunteer. My superpower is my ability to solve problems by using a systemized process of elimination type of way without getting discouraged. I love this. I love how you wrote it as well. Like you just didn't say like, yeah, I can prioritize well, or you know you have a method, you eliminate stuff, you don't get discouraged, you have that resilience, and that's mean that you're able to like truly solve problems, get to the end of things. That's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. My greatest strength is communication and problem solving to meet the needs of different communities. I'm passionate about storytelling and have a talent for humanizing structures and processes to make them more relatable and accessible. I love this as well. So here you're talking about your passion and how that's coming through, and how that's helping you in your day to day, or in being able to strength problem solving, how you're using that. That's great, super specific as well, right? Like this is your strength. Like I don't have that strength. I'm detail oriented. I tend to notice smaller issues and always have ideas on how things can be more efficient and easier. That's great. And Philip, I encourage you on that one to think, okay, like, what then do you do about those? Like, are you then great at sharing those? Like, what happens afterwards? But that's great. I'm loving those. So please do keep sharing. Appreciate the time to type. On the flip side, growth area. I did not call them weaknesses. I want to be very clear. You can have stuff that you're not great at or not good at all. I think that's totally fine. And it doesn't mean that these are things you need to work on. So I think it's totally fine to say, you know what, I'm not a coder, I am not a developer. I do not have the ambition to be the tech person in my business, and that's fine. However, my growth areas can be, you know, some of my communication skills. Sometimes I ramble on when I'm speaking, or it's just things that will help you get to the next level. And they're not the ones where you're zero. They're usually the ones where you're like a 3 or a 4, and you want to get to like a 7. So your superpowers would be your 9 and 10s, and then these would be your, I'm not there yet. They're important. There's an opportunity for me to grow. There could be zeros that you truly want to develop. It's untapped potential, but usually you start from a base. And that one we start about a ranking from 0 to 10. So a growth area is something that helps you develop and grow. So as I've said, they're not an area of weakness. They're forward looking. So they're not about saying, I'm bad at this. They're about saying, I want to improve on X. It's clear and it's action oriented. So same, start thinking, because I'm going to get you to write this in the chat as well. But it's about kind of finding things that will take you to the next level. So if you're thinking, all of most of you have shared that you want to plan your next career step, what do you think would help you get there? What's something you perceive, not something people have told you, but what do you think could make you more senior, or, ready to, if you're looking at your colleagues that are more senior, what's something they have that you don't, or you think that you could be much better at? Examples are, my growth area for this year is to focus on the big picture. I will achieve this. So then you go into specific by pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, speaking up more in meetings, taking on more ownership, and thinking about long-term strategy and how my work fits in. So, for example, when we had the example around, oh, I want to be like, think more about the strategy, and that could be a growth area. You could say, I want to be more strategic, and I'm going to do this by, and this is how you start talking about clear actions, which will come up in the PDP. So you don't need to think about the actions right now. But what else do you want to improve? I want to improve I want to improve giving critical feedback, sorry, to my team. So, I'm pretty great at relationship building with colleagues, but then when it comes to like things like tough discussions, that's where I struggle. So, I'm going to do this by having regular feedback sessions. So what comes up to mind for some of you, all of you? What do you think are growth areas, things you want to improve? Please do share so we can talk about them all together. And then I can share whilst you're typing. Well, I've shared for me, right? I do want to become better at kind of that presentation, that snappy, short, like concise. And I'm gonna do this by actually rehearsing a lot myself, and then going to speak to investors and seeing if I can like force myself to stop. So that's my forward looking. Um, I think one thing I do want to be better at, and actually that's more of a skill that I don't really have, but a growth area I have is more around product management. Um, it's part of the bigger kind of big picture of the company and kind of building the vision, working with our tech team. But I do want to become better at like building a roadmap, managing this, like, It's the kind of giving critical feedback is really difficult. So somebody on my team's missed the deadline like a few times in a row. How do I communicate this well without being too pushy? So for me, that's a big area. Give you a few more minutes to share. I'm getting you to do this because it will help you in the long run. Obviously, keep this for you. But keep all of this work for yourself. My growth area lies within networking. I don't really like the initiative to start conversations. I struggle to think of what to say. I will achieve this by preparing more beforehand, doing research on the type of people which will attend. That's great. So forward looking, gosh, networking for sure. The amount of events I've been to and you're like, "God, small talk, what will I say?" But that's great. You know that this is actually a really good skill to have, especially if you're building your career, if you want to meet the right people, if you want to get doors, that people will open, job opportunities. That is really, really a great thing to be able to do. And you knowing that it is an area that you just need to grow, need to push yourself. And that means, okay, I know exactly what's the issue. It's just I have no idea what to say. So I'm just gonna prepare a few things, few topics. I'll research the people, I'll go meet them, and that'll be it. And if not, maybe have a few like topics that you're ready to whip up at any moment. Anyone else feels comfortable to share? For example, Philippa, I am not detail oriented at all. That's something I would definitely need to improve. Well, actually, I've decided I don't want to improve that. That's not part of my growth anymore. I would like to improve delegation skills and communicating with other team members more. I will achieve this by coming out of my comfort zone. I want to use my initiative to take the lead during moments of uncertainty, speak up when there are issues, and delegate tasks. Yeah, that's so interesting. I've definitely had that issue as well, like knowing how to delegate, how to communicate with people. Um, so that's really good. Like speak up, take the lead, like knowing, what you can delegate, maybe push yourself even a bit more. Like what's blocking you from this? What's blocking you from delegating? Or how what's a shortfall in the communication of your team? Is it that you feel uncomfortable? You mentioned getting out of your comfort zone. Is it difficult conversations? Is it you don't want to ask for help? Is it like that's good to start thinking. Well, thank you to our two brave souls that have shared. But please, if you're typing something, do share it. Um, even if I don't read it, I think it's out loud. It's great for you to start thinking about these things as you plan your personal development plan. Okay. So we've done part one is when you're doing your self-reflect, when you're assessing growth and strengths, it's to do self-reflection. You want to first be super clear. So some of you have done this, it's just great. Copy paste that answer, make sure you have it on a note. Then you want to get another, and not one other, but multiple people's opinions. That's really important for you to be able to also assess like what is the feedback from others. The reason to do this is because, so we said you've understood your own areas, but you don't know how they're being perceived by someone else. And two things usually can happen. One is either they'll point at stuff that you were taking for granted and didn't realize were actual strengths, or two, they'll point at stuff that you thought you were either really great at or not great at all, and be like, no, actually, you're the opposite. So maybe you're saying, oh, I really need to improve on this, or you never noticed something was a strength. Like, no, actually, you're doing this much better than others. Or on the contrary, you might think you're doing something well, and they'll point out that actually that's not up to the standard, or they expect more from you in that sense, which is totally fine as well. Like that's feedback is meant to help you grow. It's not meant to say you're crap at something. It's really meant to say, I've identified this. This is, you go and develop, and not for somebody to say the worst type of feedback you can receive is you're great. Because like that's helping me zero. I cannot grow with this. What am I great at? What am I doing that's so great? How can I replicate this? What else could I be improving? Like that's just not good feedback at all. So if you are getting that type of feedback, people who haven't prepared for it, they're like, oh no, you're doing such a great job. Push, go, what is it specifically that I'm doing really well? Oh, well, it's just like push them. And if they go like, oh, I don't know, like you're doing okay, like, yeah, what is it that I could improve on? Is there a specific skill? Do you have an example of a time where, push them to get that feedback out of them? even if it feels uncomfortable, because this is the only way that you'll grow, is to actually get the feedback from people, especially in a culture where we feel super uncomfortable giving negative or constructive feedback. So highly recommend that. And then what you do once you have the feedback from your manager or peers or other people and your own self-assessment is you get to compare it. So you get to see what matches and what doesn't. If it's not the same, it doesn't mean that you're wrong or that they're wrong. It's just a way for you to start to see how you're perceived externally and then play on this. So like if they're saying, oh, actually you're really, really like you don't think you're detail oriented, but somebody says, oh, you're so detail oriented, you're so great at that. Like, okay, interesting. And they can name examples when you've done this. Like, oh, I didn't realize, but cool, that's a strength. I'll lean on this. And then I can focus on other stuff. And then I wanted to just do a note around ways to ask for feedback. Um, because for those of you, which is the majority that are in a role, you can ask your current manager. And if you don't have, so either you have a formal performance review that's planned, it's monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, leverage that one and then prepare for it in advance. Or if you don't have one, you can go to your manager and say, hey, I would, I've been here X months. I'd love to have like a quick feedback session, understand what I'm doing, what I could improve and what I'm great at, or like what I'm doing well. Ask them to prepare. Say, I'll come up with my own notes and my thoughts. I'd love to get your views on, examples of what I'm doing well, examples of stuff I could improve. This way, that'll force them to think about it. But it's really crucial to do the preparation, or you'll just waste that time. You can also ask feedback from peers or people who are slightly more senior than you. This can be a bit more informal. This could be after you've worked with them. So in a project, in a specific occasion, just say like, hey, like quick check, like how, could have done anything differently in that meeting? What did you think about that? But that's especially if you're starting to really gather, like if you have no idea how people are perceiving you, start gathering that feedback, ask for it. If you are not in a role, or if you are even in a role, like go to your old managers or your mentors from your internship, like what would they say were some great things and not so great things? It's easier for them to say don't work with you anymore. So they can give you that feedback a little bit more unfiltered. You can ask friends and family, they'll be a bit biased, but they might notice things as well that you don't know that could translate. So if you're a great listener, for example, you might be like somebody that could demonstrate great team leads are type behavior because you're able to listen in and really lean into that kind of coaching and support. Or maybe they'll say, well, actually you're always like great advice, you're always able to and you're like, oh, kind of the person gets stuff done or helps or unlocks situations. So maybe there's a way for you to have this. Share this. If you ask for a friend's feedback, do it for them as well. It's a little love fest, feels very nice. I've never done this. It's a lovely moment for everyone. So that's ways to ask feedback and why it matters so much. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to move on, but please share or shout questions, anything in the chat. If you want me to slow down, if there's anything that you want to discuss, questions you have, please. Hopefully we'll have time right at the end, but you can tell how I love talking. So please do stop me now if there's anything that's on your mind. So to recap where we are, we wrote down our goals and they're smart, we know when we want to achieve them, they're measurable, they're achievable, we they're relevant to us, and we have a clear deadline. Then, or they're specific, that's the S I missed. Then, so we know that. Then we did an assessment, self-assessment, and we asked for feedback to understand what were our top strengths, what were our growth areas. So we have a kind of a good idea of stuff that we can work on and then stuff to lean in. And then now is the point where you discuss what you're missing from like where you're at, your strengths and your areas, and what you need to get to, your goal. Usually you'll see, right? For all of you, we said, oh, I want to like be more strategic. I want to do X, Y, Z. Those are also areas of growth. So you can start to see like, well, if I do want to be involved in strategy, but I'm not a strategic thinker, what's a step that I can do? This is the moment where usually you would bring this to your manager. So after the feedback session, you would ask maybe a few weeks or months later to say, hey, I'm building my career plan. I've done a lot of that, reflecting. I'd love to talk to you about it. And then that's where you show them, you can send them some information before, but the point is to use somebody else's brain to help you and get them involved in your career growth. So if you say, look, you share with your manager, say, unless it's I want a new job, but if you're saying, look, I really want to grow into more of a leadership role, or I want to become more of a leader, or I want, to be a better public speaker, I want to all the things you've talked about in the chat. I've done a lot of my self-reflection, and here's where I am. I identified that my two strengths are these things, and from your feedback, here are three things I can improve. What do you think I should do? What are some of the first steps? And then you start to have a discussion. If you don't feel comfortable doing this with your manager, we can discuss why. Or, even with someone else, a mentor or buddy. If you don't feel comfortable with any of this, which I really encourage you to be comfortable with, use ChatGPT or any AI tool, and they can pretend to be a manager or a peer. And so you would do that with them. This would be your prompt. You would say, this is my goal, this is where I'm at. Help me build a plan in 6 months to achieve that. And then it can help you, or say, ask me questions, help me brainstorm, tell it to act like a manager of, give it as much context as possible so it can truly give you some form of answers. It's better if it's somebody who is actually in the company, because they can say, well, okay, well, if you want to build your strategic thinking, we actually have this project where we need to, talk about the strategy for another department. Why don't you shadow that? Like, it can be things, but at least the AI can help you, or ChatGPT can help you, brainstorm some ideas or things to come up to with your manager. Give me a quick, thumbs up, thumbs down, or yes, no in the chat. Like, would you use ChatGPT for this, or would you talk to your manager? So you can say, manager, AI, how do we feel about talking about this with a human? Anyone uses ChatGPT or AI tools to talk about your career or anything, actually? You can just type AI if you'd rather do AI, or if you'd rather it be a manager, if it makes it simple for you. AI, okay. Manager. Oh, AI manager, AI manager. Like both. Okay. Okay, it's like you've agreed. So exact mix. So that's good. Lean into what feels comfortable. For those who said AI, I think it's a great first step. I would highly recommend you then talk to your manager, because they'll be able to help you truly plan your steps. But really interesting to hear the mix. Okay, so then next step is action plan. So that's when you create the plan, and we're 48 minutes in, and that's where we're finally talking about the development plan. But basically, you really then want to have clear actions and things you get to do with milestones, because that's usually where things fall short. I think we're super clear on our goals. We start to think like, oh, I could do this, and then we forget. And actually the next step, which we'll talk about both at the same time, but it's the follow up and for you to update it. So what you would usually do depends on your cycle, how long your goals are. For most of us, we said 6 to 12 months. You could do monthly milestones, you could do quarterly ones, 2 months, depends, how you work. But give yourself, a clear thing. Like, you want to learn the British Sign Language. Okay, in what do you need to have, if that's your goal in 6 months, what needs to happen in 3 months, what needs to happen next month? Okay, what can you actually do in 1 month? Well, I can learn the alphabet or the basis of, the words, whatever it is. And then in 1 month, you review it. You have to set a deadline for yourself every month to review your personal development plan. And this should literally take you 30 minutes if you do it well. You look back at your things and your list of all the milestones you said you would do. You give an update around, did I do this? Did I do well? It could be a status. Am I red, green, or red? Red, green, or orange? Forgot what color. So what's your status? Do you feel like green, you're doing well, you're on track? Orange, you're kind of off track, but you can course correct. And red, you're far behind. And then that helps you define the next milestones or the next things you'll do. Because if you just pretend then I'm going to do month 2, what I was supposed, if you said I'm going to become bilingual in a language or sign language, and then after a month you haven't done anything, and you say, okay, now I'm going to move on to step 2, but you haven't done step 1, you'll end up confusing yourself. So you can then adapt and course correct. So create an action plan. You want to become a strategic thinker in the community engagement space. Great. That's in 6 months' time. That's what it looks like. You're owning a project, you're super clear, you're managing XYZ. What happens in 3 months? Are you participating in one? Are you in do you have a meeting, a milestone, something you can do? Then what happens next month? What happens next week? Next week is a bit too much, but really try to work. That's the work backwards methodology that we use a lot at Amazon. But just build your plan and have it clear. So it's what is the action? Who will it be with? What's my deadline? What's my success metric? Or just have I done it? Yes or no? How much have I done it? You can create a little table for yourself. But that's really what you want to have for yourself. So you're able to review it every month. And then the last thing I will say, but pretty sure it's my last slide, it's own your development. No one will own this. No one will be in charge of advancing you. You know where you want to go and you know where you are. You have to drive it. Like people will be happy to help and lean on people who are, but only you can review your personal development plan. Only you can do your milestones. Only you can push for these things. Especially like your manager might change, like you might change company, like whatever it is. So just remember this. Take your little document with you every new job or new role you get, and then watch it grow. But that is a very powerful tool. So, but only if you use it. That's it. We're on the question slide. Um, so do you have any questions for me? It can be anything relevant to what I just said. It can be anything at all on your career journey. And whilst you're thinking of questions, just a few takeaways. We talked about the PDP, and that's the blueprint for your career success. You build a person, well, we're building a personal brand, we're curating it, whether we want it or not. So be intentional about what it is you want to be known for, and then be super clear on your superpowers and growth area in that kind of concise, distinct, and unique way, so you can leverage those. Anything for me?
Thank you, Alice, for delivering such an insightful presentation. I can't see any questions yet, but if anyone does have any, if you don't want to put them in a group chat, in the chat, sorry, in the chat box, if you'd prefer to raise your hand and verbally like ask your question, please just feel free to raise your hand and I can take you off mute. I can't see anything.
Very quiet group.
Yeah.
But if you do have questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or feel free to email me as well. I give my real email address. So if you do have anything, I'm very happy. I think I said this in the previous webinar we did, but I'll open doors if you tell me which ones you need opening or how I can actually open them for you. I'm very happy. I think it's important to pass the baton, help the next person, and hopefully you do this as well. So lean on me if I can help, if you have questions. But if not, I've had a lot of fun. I feel like I've just spoke for an entire hour, which is what I did basically.
No, yeah, no, and thank you so much. I think if there are no questions, again, you guys can contact us via the alumni inbox if you'd like any questions for us to share with Alice or ourselves. But thank you for engaging. Thank you, Alice, for delivering. And I hope that you all have a lovely afternoon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.